way when you talk. That has been a request I've heard. So if we could follow that, that would be great. Okay, I'd like to call the Town of Niskayuna Conservation Advisory Council into order. This is the November 8th meeting, 2023. And Laura, would you please call roll?
Okay, so I have Richard Frontero and Clark Henry joining us virtually. Ellen Daviero is present. Oh, Chelsea just joined us virtually. Chelsea Ratner is virtually as well. Ashok Ramasubramanian, Chuck Petrowski, and Chairman Strayer.
Great. Okay, I looked at the packet and we did not have minutes to approve. Is that?
Oh, that
Right.
yes, I apologize about
That's
that.
okay.
Yeah, so actually both sets of minutes will have to be for December.
Okay,
I
great.
saw that email. Sorry.
That's fine. So then I'd like to open privilege of the floor. Anybody who would, from the public, who would like to speak may do so now. Do we have anybody online, Laura, that?
I did not receive any emails. Somehow Chelsea.
Okay, hearing no volunteers, let's move on. And what I'd like to do is, we have some representatives for the GE project here, so I'd like to address you first. So let's look at EAF 2023-08, One Research Circle, and it's a two-lot subdivision.
Super, thank you. Before we get going, I just wanted to bring the board up to date. I was here last in October and discussed preliminarily a sketch plan that we made available. That plan has been progressed pretty well to the point where I consider it like ivory soap, like 99 and 44 100% there. We've identified the boundary lines, the meets and bounds. The property description is being done. The plan, as I say, I think is pretty good, pretty solid. It may require a tweak or two, but that's something I feel pretty good about at this point. Last time when we were here, there was a discussion on a few points. One of the points was a potential driveway between the K-West building and the Learning Center. And I wanted to just indicate to the board that that has been put way off to the side, that's probably not going to happen ever. And were it to do so, that would be the subject of a separate action. And so that's been eliminated from current discussion. There was also a discussion about an interest by this board in a conservation area near the embankment of the river. And that's something that the company is willing to engage in discussion about. Apart from what we're trying to do now because of the timing. But, you know, if there's some thoughts that could be put in a memo or some bullets, I can get those to the people in the company that would have those discussions with you. And I would expect those to be after the first of the year when some of the dust settles, you know, from the current spin activities that we're undertaking. There was, I think, notes in the agenda packet that had to do with some plantings, crabapple trees near the solar array. And the company is perfectly willing to replace those dead trees. Would just like some flexibility in terms of the timing. This right now is not the perfect time to make those plantings. And also, I think there probably needs to be some flexibility as to the location so that the trees, as they mature, don't mitigate the solar array. We wouldn't want them to cast shadows on it. I think those were there was also a question about the construction of a River Road building that a zoning variance had been obtained for, and that's not going to happen. The research that was programmed for that building is going to be conducted elsewhere. So I think those were the primary outstanding items. I think this is the current. I think this was the sketch plan, Laura.
I think this is the new one because it's broken into two.
Oh, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because this has the meets and bounds. Yeah, so the important thing, I think, is that the subdivision line is west of the bike path. The bike path will remain intact on land that will continue to be owned by GE, the General Electric Company. There won't be any need to cross it because there's not going to be a driveway. So it will largely be intact. There's no, as a result of the subdivision, disturbance or improvements planned to the property. So I think in terms of an overview and in terms of addressing some of the prior discussion, that's pretty much the nub of it. It would be in our interest to be able to leave here this evening with your recommendation to the planning board for a SECRA negative declaration. We will be appearing at the planning board Monday, the 13th, next week. And hopefully at that time, the planning board will schedule a public hearing to be held on the 27th. And it's our hope that we can receive action that evening. The spin, if you will, the corporate reorganization is going to occur later in December, beginning of January in that area. And it will be necessary for us to make certain property transfers in advance of that. And so we're hoping to be able to conclude the transfer of this 194 acres to GE Vernova on or about December 1st.
Does anybody on the board have any questions?
Not a question, just a comment. First of all, thank you, sir, for coming and addressing us. The reason the CAC brought all those other issues which are not germane to the subdivision application is that we rarely get any opportunity to interact with GE. Let's face it, like GE is like really powerful multinational corporation, right? And Niskayuna is about 15,000 square miles with about 20,000 people. And a good chunk of that 15,000 square miles is actually owned by, GE. So we have a lot of initiatives going on, and we have struggled to get buy-in and to have any kind of relationship with General Electric. And whenever we see GE people, we get excited and start talking to them. This is in no way to be interpreted as holding your application or anything like that. It's merely some feedback from people who are desperate to have some contact. And forgive me for saying so, a lot of emails to GE go just unanswered because we are simply not, big enough, right? So one of the things that I wanted to quickly say is we are starting something called a natural resources inventory in Niskayuna, which is just like an inventory of natural spaces. We would love participation from GE given the enormous footprint that we have. So you graciously said if we can put items in an email, you'd be willing to forward it to the appropriate people.
Certainly.
So I just want to repeat that there is no intent here to slow down the process or anything like that. We are merely excited that we could potentially have somebody to talk to with GE. That's all.
Well, I can assure you that in the projects that I'm involved in, this is the way I prefer to interact.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? No?
Pull it like really
Go
close
ahead.
to you, Ellen. You're the quietest of them all.
So none of the things that were on the table before the only thing they're doing is dividing some property that is within their own property. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yeah.
So there's no walls, there's no changes, nothing else is being done to the land. It's just on paper.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So it's just for all intents and purposes, it's a company division of property for their financial spreadsheet.
Yes, and it's not just this property. There's, property in other states.
Yeah, no,
There's equipment,
that's per-
resources and so forth that
Yeah.
are being divided.
Yeah, so, as far as most of the concerns that we had all along, they're pretty much mute because there's nothing changing to the land other than the division. Is that, I guess I'm just doing a little summary. to
No,
make sure
that is correct. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the nub of it.
Okay, this wasn't all, laid out in the proposal, but it will be in the notes that the building, I saw before that the building won't be there, but we now know that there'll be no road constructed, and if there will be, then it'll be
It'll be
brought
separate
back.
site
So,
plan.
okay,
Mhm.
so which is where most of our questions and concerns were to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah, and that was true of the tree council as well. So that is helpful to the overall
Okay.
project.
Okay,
I do have one question for you.
Sure.
And perhaps you can fill me in a little bit. So there's going to be two separate entities, one on each parcel. Do you envision any traffic changes or traffic flow changes as far as will more people use the Balltown entrance, or will more people use the River Road entrance, or would it be about the same?
I would expect it to be largely the same. I can't imagine that there would be any immediate increase in traffic or burden on either parcel.
Okay. So essentially, I think you anticipate the same workforce.
Yeah, the COVID really impacted
Yep.
the site. So many people worked remotely, and I think there's people that are now beginning to return. But there's no projected massive hirings, and there's no projected decreases in the labor force.
Okay.
I do think that GE people must be coming back because Balltown Road traffic didn't back up for a while. And I would just say, like, in the last 2 or 3 months, like, it seems like it's a little bit higher. And I wondered if that's because they're calling a lot of people back.
I believe that's the case because there's a lot of internal discussion and activity over the spin, the reallocation of resources, and that bears upon things that are operational, ongoing projects, and so forth. And sometimes that in-person collaboration is really important to the continuation of those things.
Is Chelsea on? Chelsea, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I definitely feel like with the lack of the road being put in and not much going on there, I feel like it's pretty straightforward with this particular one. So I'm on the same page as you guys.
Okay.
And Richard's there too.
And Richard?
I don't have really anything else to add.
Okay, Great.
May I make a motion, Chairman?
you may.
I moved.
Can we go through the questions super
Oh,
fast?
yeah, you can.
Did you guys get a chance to look at the part 1? I don't need to go over that.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty straightforward. I can read the questions and you can answer them, Ashok, since you wanted to make the motion. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with the adopted land use plan or zoning regulation? No. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of use of land?
Well, the road, that was the only thing that could potentially flag that question is no longer, so that's definitely wrong.
Do you have your microphone on?
Yeah, no, sorry. The road, that was the only potential thing that could impact question 2 is no longer there, so that's definitely no. First column.
Okay. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community?
Again, no.
No.
Mm.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? We do not have those in this UNA. Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
Chairman Strayer asked about the traffic, and the representatives have a nice explanation about the biking. So no to that.
Will the proposed action cause an increase in use of energy, or does it fail to incorporate reasonable available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities? There's no buildings
No.
being built,
No
so I feel like
building.
that's pretty easy. And then will the proposed action impact existing public-private water supplies, public-private wastewater? There's no new buildings. I'm just going to answer those. Okay. Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources?
No, but I will comment here, what I addressed the gentleman from GE that that's some really good forest land, next to the
Beautiful.
river. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And partly because of that is why we wanted to have some representation from GE on our natural resources inventory project. The last time we did it, like we said, we briefly explored the possibility of can we get access to go inside and look at the flora and fauna there? But it's okay, it's a non-starter. We can't talk to anybody there. So such are the kind of questions I know, which is unrelated to your application here, where we are very keen on having some buy-in from GE.
Okay,
For
So
what it's
that's-
worth, they don't let me in.
Wait, sir, I thought you work at GE.
No, I'm an attorney in private practice. I should have said that at the very outset.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm an attorney with the law firm of Lemery Greisler.
okay.
And I've been engaged to assist them with this division of their property.
Would you be able to connect us with people who can, potentially give us access, listen to our concerns, etc.?
I have spoken with the site engineers
Uh-huh.
about your interest. They've, asked for some of your ideas so that we can sift them to the proper people in the company to respond to.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient. If we have contact to the facilities people, I think that would,
Yeah, so I think it's on us.
that's
We need to
the
make
way
a
we need to
really-
go through the
A
process.
good memo that
Yeah.
we can give to
Yeah.
him. We
Yes.
should put together a really well-written memo.
Who knows? I may be the guy.
I hereby volunteer for the writing of said memo.
Okay.
Uh,
And then
Go on, Laura.
will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage?
No,
And will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
not that I see.
No.
Okay. So you
So
are
you can make your
welcome
motion.
to- a motion with any conditions you wanted to enter into part 3's. Anything? Pretty
Well,
straightforward.
it's not a condition, of course. I mean, there cannot be any quid pro quo here, but an ardent desire, a wish list, or something like that. But I don't think that can be put in.
No,
yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
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 Yep.
So I don't have anything to add.
Okay, well, what's your recommendation?
I have no hesitation in recommending a negative declaration for this EAF.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Great. Okay, all in favor of the recommendation, say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, the council just gave you a negative deck.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, not to belabor the point that I have made 2 times already, but but I shall write the memo and hope for awesomeness.
Yeah, and Laura has my contact information, but let me give you my card.
I'll give you my card.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You've been lovely to work with as a representative from GE, so we very much appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you and good night.
Have a good night.
See you Monday.
See you Monday, 8:30 in the morning.
Okay. Let's move back to EAF 2023-07, and that's 2890 River Road, and that is a 4-lot subdivision, and there was a drainage report included in our packet. And I guess there's a lot of information here, so Laura, could we talk about the status of the project? Because I saw there was 3 houses on it.
Yeah, Clark,
And
can
where-
you take
where are
this
we on
one? I
this?
feel like you're just so much closer to it than I am.
I just
Sure,
wanted to
can I
quickly
hear
add
me?
that my computer could not handle all those pages, so I will be relying on the
Oh,
screen.
I'll bring it up. Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Clark.
Okay, sure. Just as a quick recap, this project has appeared before the planning board 3 times on 8/28, 9/11, 10/2, and 10/6. It's appeared before the CAC twice on 9/6 and 10/4, and there have been 2 site walks of the property on 9/6 and 10/5. On October 16th, the applicant and his engineer were at the planning board meeting, and they presented the stormwater analysis that was just referenced. The planning board had not had the opportunity to review that analysis at the time, but they got into a pretty good discussion. And really, in part as a result of that, we've decided to hold more firmly to our 10-day requirement of material being supplied in advance of public meetings, just so the boards have adequate time to review them. So the planning board meeting coming up on Monday, November 13th, will be the first real discussion of that stormwater analysis. Just some other quick dates. A TDE escrow account was set up late in the afternoon on Friday, 10/27, and we immediately engaged a TDE and had them working on reviewing that stormwater analysis first thing Monday morning on 10/30. After that, the applicant submitted a revised 3-lot subdivision site plan on 11/6, which is also past the date for the 11/13 meeting of being reviewed. So we'll have to talk a little bit about that internally. But the planning office did receive a first comment letter from the TDE on the stormwater analysis that again was done to the 4-lot subdivision. I haven't even looked at it myself yet to see if he adjusted that for the 3-lot subdivision that was submitted on 11/6 yet. But that's basically where the planning board stands. They had a really good discussion on 10/16 about the project. The applicant's engineer described the stormwater analysis, and we really wanted to give the TDE time to really review the contents of that report rather than just be speculating on it or giving too much of our own opinions. You know, that's what we hire the TDE for. So we're kind of holding off for their feedback on that. But we do know that there's quite a bit of wetlands in the area of this project. Just even a preliminary glance at the stormwater analysis that was done by the applicant's engineer showed that with certain rainstorms, even such as what we've experienced over the summer, you can get more stormwater runoff at Seneca Road than the current culvert system is designed to transmit to the wetlands. So there's basically a pre-existing condition of a lot of stormwater coming off onto Seneca Road. And that's a big part of what the TDE will be analyzing as they continue to do their work.
Hey, Clark, I have a couple questions about the study. So it looks like there's two culverts. One is a 36-inch culvert, one's a 30-inch culvert going into the site, right? And basically that's inadequate currently for the property. And that was based on a 25-year storm. And I think it was like 291 cubic feet per second is what comes down. So part of it goes through the culvert and part of it goes over the street. And then you look at the 42-inch culvert that goes under River Road. That's a 42-inch culvert, and that has a capacity of 116 cubic feet. And that's based on a 5-year storm. So I have multiple questions related to that, but let's start with the first question I have is why did they pick the 5-year storm when they were looking at the River Road section, and they picked a 25-year storm when they were looking at the Seneca Road?
Yeah, I think if you look at the subdivision code and the town code, which I think is chapter 189, those are actually the minimum numbers that the code calls for. But there is discretion of the various boards to adjust that number. You know, there's a lot of industry and conventional thinking that those numbers are outdated given the trends we're seeing in the intensity of short-term rainfalls. So if just as a reference point, with a recent project on Polsinelli Drive, we used 100-year storm numbers for some of those calculations. So those are the kinds of things that the TDE is answering for us. You know, I don't want to get, I think that's what we're hiring the TDE for.
Yeah,
but that's my impression.
I concur with that. I mean, I think that we need to design for a 100-year storm, but regardless of my feeling on that, I think that the analysis is flawed because they're using different numbers in the analysis. I don't see how you can use a 5-year storm on one part of the property and a 25-year storm on the other part. Either you choose 5 years or you choose 25 and be consistent in that. And the other concern I have related to that is that if we're saying that the 291 cubic feet per second of water comes into the property either through the culvert or over the road, that property acts as a storage basin because it cannot discharge that water. So that really raises a lot of concerns about the function of that property and its behavior within the drainage system, right? And the fact that it's storing water there, if that storage were to be reduced somehow, we could have flooding over River Road as well.
Right.
So I think this is a really big issue here for this particular project. And then go ahead.
I agree, and that was in large part the discussion on 1016, and that is a major portion of what we put in the request for quotation for the TDE to review, and they're doing that currently.
Mm-hmm. And then I guess my last question on this, and then I'll be done with my questions on the water report, is what what are the town's options, given that the existing culverts are inadequate? How do we potentially upgrade that problem or fix the problem that's on that neighborhood? Or is that even an option?
I think that's a whole nother branch almost to be investigated
Okay.
that the town would have to look into. Laura brought up a great point on the 10/16 planning board meeting that stormwater report really has to analyze what if all the stormwater that comes off of the upland watershed area does get conveyed to 2890 River Road, then what does that look like? And has that been modeled? To your point, there's a lot of questions and analysis that seems to be done. And then we would have to look at what the solution is from the town standpoint. So those are definitely the unknowns.
Okay, thanks for that. Does anybody else have any questions before?
Well, I
Proceed.
wanted to address Ellen's comment. So
Yep.
when you attach a SWIP to a packet, the SWIPs, they're almost like environmental impact statements. They're like 100 pages long. And nobody's expecting you to look at every single page. The reason they're that long is because of the modeling. So like a huge chunk of the appendices are like these little bar graphs with the waters going in and out. And a lot of times I remove them, but in this particular situation, they had them intermixed with other data. So I decided drainage is an issue. I'll put the whole thing in. You do not ever need to read an entire SWIP. You can read the pages that you like, or you can wait for the town designated engineer to look it over, and essentially he'll summarize any of the, or she will summarize any of the comments that are, outstanding. This one was interesting because it wasn't only like a standard SWIP, which I'm going to try and stop using acronyms for some of you guys. I'm sorry. I'll try. Is the SWIP is the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, SWPPP. So it's also, to what Chairman Strayer was saying, it's a model of upstream and downstream drainage issues, which you don't always see, but we knew that we had them here, so they did do them. And that's where the issue of the storms is coming into play, as they looked at the upstream and downstream. And so when you see that many pages in your packet, I know it's a little overwhelming, but you don't have to read them all. You can pick and choose what you want to read, or you can wait for the town designated engineer's referral. Clark said it came in. I pulled it open and it's like 5 pages long, and I wasn't able to read all the comments yet. There's a lot in there.
Mhm. No, it's really quite dense. I just picked, it was my first observations that I just brought up, and I think we need to get resolution on these issues.
Yeah, and we invited the applicant tonight, but we invited him pretty late. So my hope is that you'll be able to actually get a presentation from the applicant's engineer at the next meeting.
Okay.
But Clark has been working really hard on it, so he can answer a lot of the technical stuff for you too.
Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions?
No, I just wanted to see the same consistency used for that. And eventually I would like to know what actually the size of the culvert is that they actually need to have in place. And then where do they look like? I just want to make sure that, that they use consistency, as you were saying, with the size of the culvert, and then basically just the proper culvert that will handle the water should it become, for the storm that that we will eventually have.
Yeah. So Clark and I have had those discussions. We used the 100-year storm on Pocinelli. That's what he just alluded to. We worked very hard on getting the data right for Pocinelli. And I think the 100-year storm is the storm that we want to hold, fast to. So that, he said, is the discretion of the planning board. I'm hopeful that the planning board will, require the 100-year storm, and that we should be able to see a 100-year storm in and a 100-year storm out, and just make sure we understand what's happening to the property in that situation.
Yeah, clearly observations are we're having more intense rainfalls over a shorter period of times. I would just like to say that I visited the property multiple times since this project came on board after rainstorms, and there is definitely a water problem there. You
Yeah.
can see it.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's-
it's,
yeah.
it's pretty obvious.
There definitely is a water problem. There always has been, and that is why it has been the way it has for the
Mhm.
last 20 plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like to Clark's point, I don't know that we really need to get into the differences too much of the 4-lot to the 3-lot.
Okay.
The 3-lot homes, they are on a higher part of the property, which I do think is an improvement. But I think we need a little more analysis of this before we can really dive in. We're just trying to keep you informed, and you could ask Clark any specific questions you had on it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any other questions by members of the board?
Yes, I had a quick question, please. Somewhere in the packet, it said that there is an existing house that is in poor condition and will be demolished. Are there any details about like why that house would be demolished? Like what is the nature of the disrepair?
It's pretty extensive, Ashok. I actually went there with Dennis Brennan, the town historian, because we did have him do the historic preservation committee inspection of the house. So he did research on it. It's in very, very poor condition. One of the building inspectors was actually called out to it either earlier this week or over the weekend to secure it even more. It's in very, very bad shape.
It's on River Road, Ashok. If you drive up the road, you can see it from the road. Right? It's right up from the park entrance.
Yeah, so be careful because it's actually a bit hard to see from the road, and so you want to be like either a passenger or going very slow. But there's 2 houses between the entrance to River Road Park and Seneca Road. The house that's closer to the entrance of River Road is a beautiful home, well taken care of. People live there. It's lovely. So don't confuse that home with this home. This home is set back a little. It's a bit harder to see. It's pretty dark, and it's in pretty bad shape.
Thank you, Clark.
Sure.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay, if we have no other comments, then I might suggest we move on to the next EAF, which is EAF 202309, and that is the Mohawk River State Park land transfer, where the state will transfer the current state park into the control of Niskayuna, and it will become a Niskayuna Park.
Okay, so that one is me. I have a little bit more data for you this time. Hold on, let me bring it up. In terms of meets and bounds descriptions and total acreage, and the Part 1 EAF was attached. So the land that is uphill from the bike path is the Mohawk River State Park. It comes to us with a deed restriction to remain parkland forever. And the specific parcels and the deeds were attached. So the total acreage is 106.45 acres, which according to New York State, if you publicly dispose of more than 100 acres, it's a type 1 action, which is why you have the full environmental assessment form. So no change to the parcel, change of ownership. The hope is with the change of ownership, the town will have the flexibility to improve trails and just improve the usability of the park more readily. And then the other thing is that they're trying to work with the state. If you were to add bathrooms to the park, they would still have to be on the state property because the Mohawk River State Park is really all the uplands. it's on the other side of the river, so everything starts to go up. So it's really not a good place for the bathrooms. But we're hoping to work with the state on putting bathrooms on the Lock 7 side. And as part of the land transfer, I guess this land is not very useful to the state. They don't maintain it or take care of it in any way. So the hope is that if we take that from them, maybe they can work with us on the bathrooms and it can be kind of a win-win. It's a pretty simple environmental impact statement to fill out. If you're doing a land transfer, you only have to answer the first 2 sections and then the very last. I tried to fill out a little bit more for you guys just so you'd have the information. If you had a chance to take a look, I'm happy to answer any questions on it.
So the deed restriction means that it, like, what does it mean actually?
So it's a really good question. And I think there's a little nuances to it, which Dart and I talked about, which we can get into a little bit. But it essentially means that when the state deeds it to us, it says that we can't develop it. It has to remain forever parkland. In his research, Dart did find that deed restrictions can be lifted, but state deed restrictions to parkland, I think, are upheld almost always. Some private, more different deed restrictions can be lifted a little easier, but I think most judges on, in the Supreme Court are going to hold to a deed restriction from New York State for parkland. That being said, I know that that's the most critical issue to this board. It was brought up at the last meeting, so I certainly think in this case, you could do a conditional negative deck recommendation with the condition that the land remain forever parkland. So not even referencing the deed restriction, just say, we find no environmental impacts provided that this land remain forever parkland would be a suggestion I'd have.
And what does that forever parkland, does that mean that the land can be developed in any way, or are there accepted uses or mechanisms to build something on parkland?
Yeah, I'm not a super expert about that, but I am using the parkland term because we received land from the state in the Stanford Ave, Fairfax Ave area. And it came with the parkland restriction. And we've looked at it a couple times and it's very restrictive. So whatever that word means, like anytime the town has looked at doing something, it's been like, oh, it's parkland. Like you can't even abandon the right of ways and stuff.
My question focuses on parkland could be very vague. So if the town chose, could they put tennis courts on the parkland? Could they put a swimming pool on the parkland? Could they, in other words, does it have to be a passive park or can it be an active park?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. So, wearing my 2 hats, if the CAC was worried about that, then I would be very specific in your wording. Like I use the term parkland because that's the way the deed restriction comes.
Mhm.
But if the concern is, that we don't know exactly what the term parkland means and that the concern is that it remained forever wild or, undeveloped with, passive recreation trails only or something like that.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, I would come down on forever wild, but, your point about a bathroom or providing access if there wanted to be a parking area so people could utilize part of this land, I don't want to hem the town in that respect. And that's why I'm sort of searching for the appropriate
Well,
term.
so I can tell you though, that is probably okay because this isn't a topo map, but
I know it's
you
pretty
see,
hilly.
you have the Lock 7 Park and you have the Mohawk River State Park. And the only land they're talking about is this land, the brown trail, the yellow trail, much of the red trail, and then this down here.
But there's
Yeah.
Whitmire Drive.
Well,
right?
that's true. And Whitmire Drive is flat and it's on the top of the
Yeah,
hill.
so if you look at that parcel where
Here.
Whitmire curves over.
This is flat and
That's all
could
flat.
take a bathroom. It'd be kind of a strange place to put a bathroom though, because it's at the end of a residential street.
Well, I'm just thinking if the town, I know the sewage treatment plant is at the end of that road. If the town wanted to put an access point, I know the access point there is kind of lousy, actually. You know, I'm not sure what Forever Wild means either. You know, so if you wanted to put like a parking lot there, that might be an appropriate place for access for people to use the park. But if we made it completely Forever Wild, would that be negated?
I don't know.
No, regarding parking, there at the entrance to the bike trail, like it's a hill from both sides. There is parking at the end of that road, Whitmere, yeah. And there's also a lot of parking at the lock itself. I guess I'm not, and I have never been in a situation where I've gone to either one of those parking lots, including peak summer weekends, and found out that there's been no parking. I guess I'm not seeing the need for additional parking at this time.
I'm just saying that I've accessed this park along the bike path. I've also accessed it through Whitmire. I would say the Whitmire entrance is not what I would call very welcoming. I mean, you walk into it, it's very unclear. You feel like you're parking, you got to not block the sewage treatment plant. There's a structure there that's falling apart. I just want to make sure that this property is protected, but at the same time, awkward wording does not hem the town into potential utilization of this parcel. That's all.
Chuck had a comment.
Yeah, I just, thank you. First of all, this land has been like this for 50 years, thereabouts, and no one has brought up any usage issues that I'm aware of. Second of all, we're not the park planning board. What the town would plan to do with it, I think is the discussion for another day. I believe our role, or my role here, is to say we should protect this land as is, as it's been given to us, or as it will be given to us by the state, whether that term is Forever Wild or not. I don't think it is in our best interest tonight to anticipate what could be done on this land and then backward, then try to legislate around it. I think it's being given to us with the intent from the state to preserve it and keep it as is, noting all the trails that are already there. It's already been sliced and diced, for recreational purposes, which is great. There is Lock 7, and I know that, there is Blatnick Park up the way. My preference would be to take it as is and keep it as is for as long as possible. Should the Parks Department and the town choose to develop something, whether it's a bathroom or a basketball court, I'm hoping whatever we would state would either prevent that now or make an extensive due diligence process for the town to adapt to it, because the state is not giving, or I believe this is not being given to us to lay down concrete or put up bricks.
No, I agree with you. I just think that some of the terminology is kind of awkward.
Understood.
And
I actually like Chuck's terminology. Like, what if we just said preserve and keep as is? Because, that's pretty clear.
I almost think you need, I'm leaning in that matter more Forever Wild and just really locking it down.
Would
No, go on.
would Forever Wild prohibit trail development of whether it's
That's what I'm-
purposeful or accidental?
Yeah, that's what I would be concerned.
And would that be seen as a step backwards and retreating from a recreational use of this land to a no use of this land?
There's also the question of invasive species management, and like it's if hemlock, it's Japanese knotweed is all over the place, and somebody needs to go and do some intervention.
It is.
Yeah.
So there is a specific definition of forever wild in New York State. Um, it looks like it pertains mostly to cutting the trees, though. Preventing timber cutting or the sale or lease of any of the state lands.
I know in New York State, if you designate it parkland, it's hard for the town to sell.
I mean, honestly, like it looks like forever wild as far as New York State, especially it looks like it was adopted in particular to the Adirondacks, but it means that the lands have to be forever kept as wild forest lands, and they shall not be leased, sold, or exchanged, and no timber shall be sold, removed, or destroyed.
Okay, I like that definition.
And help me out. So let's just say, for example, and I know I said this, we shouldn't think this way, but if somebody wanted to build or if the town wanted to build a basketball court, they would have to go through the same environmental
They do.
processes to,
Mhm.
So they wouldn't be able to do it without the reviews and the debates and the due diligence.
Well, I guess maybe what we could do is not, I mean, really the conditional it's a recommendation. So it's our expectation, right? So maybe it's sufficient for us to say what our expectation is and not get hung up in the legal context.
Also, what is the timeline for this, Laura? The GE person said like they want to walk out of here with a negative declaration. So
This one's timeline is basically the same. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the state has a certain closing time and the town has to pass its resolution. And actually, yeah, I could add it from the floor, but it would either be the end of this November or December, yeah, for them to take action.
I feel confident that we can write something that is, hold it to its value of what we anticipate and to put restrictions for what we think, we'd like to see, whether, i.e. it's a bathroom down by Lock 7 or just a nicer entrance area up on Whitmire if you want to increase traffic in that area. But I'm not sure that the people that live on that
Right.
street want to anyway. So I
Right.
would think that would, definitely be something that you'd want to consult with them first.
Oh,
And-
yeah, I don't think we would take any action on this without,
No, I'm just saying that I'm just,
it's a fine line because I think putting a few parking spaces is very different than like putting a town pool on it. And I don't want to see like a town pool, but a
right.
parking lot may be appropriate.
Yeah. Well, so, and I just, yeah, but I definitely think
Not that I have
that,
anything against town pools, I just.
yeah, no,
That's
and
what I said.
but I do think that we need to start to address the invasive species that we have
Mm-hmm.
in our town and to make it noteworthy that it is there and very prevalent, and that we need to put together an action plan that will allow us to start to retake some of our native species.
I think we could put all those notes. I think it'd be good because we're essentially the only board that's reviewing this besides the town board.
Yep.
So if we wanted to say, hey, we did a natural resources inventory and have identified invasive species in that area and would love to help on all these things, they'll get a memo from us. It's always good to put it in there.
Yeah. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I think that's one of the benefits of the town taking this land is that we can take action, conservation action on the land itself without having to go through the state. Clearly the town has created trails in there without asking permission. So it would be in our best interest to have this land, and I support the town taking this land or receiving this land from the state and keeping it as parkland with all the protections possible for it.
Okay, well, why don't we go through the questions then, and then we can make a recommendation.
Yeah, so the full impact statement, if you guys remember, there's a general question. If you answer no to that, we just pop to the next general question. If you answer yes, then we get into the individual ones. So the long form is much more takes a while, but impact on land. Will the proposed action involve construction on or physical alteration of the land surface of the proposed site? And I'm gonna propose that the answer to that is no, because this action, similar to GE, is actually a paper action where the land is transferring from the state to the town, and future physical alteration may require a separate review, but this actual action in and of itself is just a title change.
As long as we have conditions on it, I could see that, because it is a paper action, but my expectation is the state of New York is going to be a good steward of this property. I want to ensure the town of Niskuna is the same type of steward or better.
Yeah, so I mean, I
So-
definitely think putting those notes in the memo are really good, but this proposed action doesn't propose to change the land in any way.
No, but it could have implications down the road.
Yeah.
I mean, that's happened before.
Yeah.
If you check no, can you still put some
Yeah.
Yeah.
like text, like Chairman Strayer says, like,
The reason
know,
why this is no is
y-
because,
yeah.
yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
and like a few additional parking spaces is fine, but definitely no to a, what do you say? Don't,
I wouldn't use those examples.
Okay.
I-
so,
What I would say is that it has to be maintained as open space parkland. And it is our expectation that the town will keep it in its current state, less improvements or, I don't know the proper word.
I think current state is fine. That's the definition of conservation, keeping things as is.
Okay. Will the proposed action modify or destroy, inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site? Cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves.
No.
Will the proposed action affect wetlands and or surface water bodies?
Mm-mm.
Will the proposed action result in new or additional use of groundwater or have the potential to introduce contaminants into the groundwater?
wait, if you're talking about bathrooms,
No, we're not on this.
There are no
Alright.
proposed
Alright,
changes to
alright.
the land.
okay.
The
okay,
bathrooms would be on the.
Block
interstate
7
and
property anyway,
Block
yeah.
7.
Okay.
So just for the record, there are no bathrooms there,
Right.
but that doesn't stop people from going to the bathroom.
Right.
So putting up a bathroom is not necessarily going to make
Yeah.
contaminants worse. It's very likely going to make
Uh-huh.
contaminants better.
Well, and by taking this action, there is no guarantee that bathrooms will ever be there.
Yeah, 100%.
That's not our
Land-
job to plan what the town will do with this land. The question on the table is whether we will accept this land from the state.
Impact to flooding. Will the proposed action result in development of land subject to flooding?
No,
Impacts on air. Will the proposed
No.
action include a state regulated air emission source? Impacts on plants and animals. Will the proposed action may result in loss of flora or fauna?
mm-mm. Except for
I
maybe
feel
some
like we
invasive
should,
species.
yeah. I mean, can we just add a note that it should protect flora and fauna, and we'd like to work on invasive species?
Yeah.
Protect native. flora
That's actually really hard to get rid of knotweed in the Schenectady County area.
town.
Because essentially we were ground zero for the introduction of knotweed.
It's not so much the knotweed, it's that grass,
Which grass?
Phragmites.
Phragmites that, is, once you see it, you can't unsee it everywhere. You can
Oh.
literally see it as you drive from here to the Adirondack. You can see it as you drive from here to the Adirondacks as it creeps into the Adirondacks. It's frightening, actually.
Okay,
Fragmites.
I need to find out what that looks like.
Okay.
It's right across the street. It's
Yeah.
taking over the cattails right across the street. So
You
when
should
I
see what
first
the
started working
cattails look
here,
like on the water too,
Yeah.
over on River Road Park, on the River Road.
yeah. So when I first started watching here, if you looked across the street, it was 90% cattails
cattails.
with just a little Phragmites over by the library. If you look at it now, it's about 80% Phragmites with just a little bit of cattails left towards Van
Yeah.
Antwerp. And the school actually noticed that, and they were working on trying to remove some of the Phragmites in there, but it's so hard to.
So it's a cattail type grass, but it doesn't have a cattail.
It doesn't have a cattail.
It has a.
So
tassel
sorry, I'll
on
get us
top.
back on topic.
Okay, I
So
know what you're talking about.
I
It's
wrote
in-
this action should protect native flora and fauna and give the town the opportunity to remove invasive
Yeah.
species. I left a word out. Species. Because I think that is a great opportunity here.
Mhm.
The state's very supportive of us removing invasive species too, by the way. But impact on agricultural resources,
None.
impact on aesthetic resources,
None.
impact on historic and archaeological resources. So I did want to note, I did put a letter in here from the state. They did note that the area is in an archaeological sensitive area, but
Mhm.
again, we're not doing any ground disturbance, so I'm proposing no impact on historic and archaeological resources. Impact on open space and recreation. Would it result in a loss of recreational opportunities or reduce open space? I feel like that's a no, and it could potentially enhance all of those things. Do we want to note that it could make it better, or just leave that? Just leave it.
It's a little, it's not a simple issue because, there's mountain biking, right? And if it's like really popular with mountain biking, then seniors are afraid to go in there for obvious reasons. There again, going back to Chuck's point, like, it's up to the town to decide like whether mountain biking should be encouraged or whether it should be for children or adults, or do they all come in different times,
Yeah, but it's not a loss of recreational opportunities because the town's taking over its protection. So,
Mhm.
That's fair. I'm happy with no there.
Okay.
I'm very happy with no there.
Okay, impact on critical environmental areas. Again, we don't have
Nope.
those. So, impact on transportation. Would the proposed action result in change
Nope.
to existing transportation? Impact to energy.
Nope.
Impact to noise, odor, and light.
Nope.
Impact on human health.
No.
I mean, it'll stay the same, but I mean, if it goes to I guess I just want to make sure that we do not add any light to this area,
That's a good point.
because we do not protect our unlit areas
Well,
as well as,
yeah, I think that goes back again to, if the town was going to make some changes, they would, have to look
Yes.
at those things. But if we're using the language keep as is, there's currently no lighting. So I feel like that's pretty covered. And I would just caution if we were going to do a thing saying don't add light, because when we were talking with Rivers Ledge, and there's that long section of bike path that kind of connects the two parts of Rivers Ledge. And so we were talking about adding pedestrian scale lighting that doesn't impact the sky whatsoever. It's only like 3 feet high and goes down just to the bike path. So
yes, but when we did Rivers Ledge, we failed to really, every unit has lights on it. So it
on the
is
sides of the building, yeah.
everywhere. It's so much light.
Yeah.
I have two comments that we can go back to
But-
the first question to address it, but I would say that we encouraged, or we would like them to maintain the night sky practice.
Yeah.
Or environment.
Dark skies. Yeah. That's a good way, because that way you could potentially put up some safety lighting that's dark sky friendly or something.
Yeah, they're actually dark sky friendly.
Consistency with community plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's backwards.
It's
I have to read it
not
again. The
consistent.
proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plan, so I say no to that one. It is consistent. It's a double negative. And then, is it inconsistent with the existing character of the community?
No.
Okay, so that brings you guys to your motions with any comments. that you
Wait,
have.
I'd like to go back up and to the statement that we wrote. Or are we going to write a new comment?
No, did you want to put a comment in the noise, odor, and light there?
No. Yeah, we could put the comment in there to maintain a night sky friendly environment, right?
Dark
Nice.
sky.
Yeah,
Dark sky. Yeah, right, night sky. That's subjective. Manhattan has a different definition than the Adirondacks.
okay, which other one did you want to go to?
Up at the top, the first comment we made,
Okay,
I think we should put in that we expect to maintain it. It's the land's low density use, and I think that would discourage any big recreational centers.
okay. So land has to be maintained as open space parkland. Our expectation is the town will keep the land in its current state and low density use.
Yeah.
So
As
the,
low, if you want to put as low density use, that's fine too, right? It just makes it sound a little bit better.
Oh yeah, okay, I got it.
so does this thing have a date stamp so that, when it says its current state, like November of 2023?
At the time of transfer?
There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yep. 11/8/2023.
And in a lot of, please forgive me for doing this to you, but
No.
the it's should not have an apostrophe because it's a contraction and not a pronoun. I'm very
You were
sorry.
completely right about that.
Well, I'm wondering too, since we're here, do we need to put something that it's our expectation that the land will never be subdivided or sold?
It's not a bad idea. We have one chance to do these things.
Yeah.
And the land would never. Would not. Sorry. Why?
There's
That all
our
goes
one
with the
chance to
parkland
get
risk,
legacy
but it never
forever,
hurts to
right?
be in
Are you ready for our motion?
Mhm.
Make a motion to accept the
Do a negative declaration.
negative
to the town
deck,
board.
Subject to the conditions.
subject to the conditions that we set.
I
I'll
will-
second that, or you can second it?
Chairman Strayer, please.
I'll second it. Okay, all those in favor of a negative deck, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I,
Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, moving on. Discussion items. 1430 Balltown Road, it looks like we are reworking the existing building on Balltown Road. I couldn't quite see where the addition was, Laura. It
Yeah,
looked
I'll
like
show
more
you.
like a
Oops.
facade change, but
So if you're standing, on Balltown Road looking at the building, it's on the right.
mhm.
And a lot of times this stuff wouldn't even come to you, but it's a big enough addition that, it triggers the environmental review. So this is the existing building as it is now, and they're proposing a 2,700 square foot building addition towards this WRGB side.
What is, so it's that whole shaded area.
Yeah, and actually you can see it pretty nicely on these renderings.
Yeah, I saw it on I saw the rendering, but I didn't.
So
get a
on the
good scale.
renderings, essentially, I think I haven't looked to make sure that they line up perfectly. And Clark, if I'm wrong about this, just jump in. But I think that this little thing here is a marker to the addition, I think. It looks like it on the plans to me.
Mhm.
This is existing building, then they'd put this longer window addition on the side, I think. Because like, do you see, like, here's the majority of the building, then you have
Yeah.
this little wing. This looks like the majority of the building to me, and then you have this little wing.
Is that the law office or the
Yeah.
daycare? What?
It was the law offices. It's currently vacant.
And who owns this now? What is the purpose of the addition?
So it's owned by Highbridge Development, and the purpose of the addition is to provide extra square footage, I believe, so that they can put in a tenant.
Okay.
Have you talked to him at all, Clark?
No, I haven't. So, I mean, I think the application is just to expand the building, I guess, to make it more marketable or something. That's all the application says.
But we don't know what that extra space, is it office space? Is it lobby space? Is it?
Yeah, they haven't come to the planning board, which is why this is
Right.
only a discussion item. So
Yeah.
really, it's for you guys to look at, drive by, digest the data. It had its own SWIP, which if you look at the plans, because they're increasing the parking area a little bit, they
Mhm.
put in stormwater stuff. Well, Clark's already got going on the town designated engineer for this. So by our next meeting, we should have the stormwater pretty well reviewed and a good summary for you guys. It
Mhm.
just so happened that this meeting had neither summary for points. So you got the full enchilada. But yeah, I think they have a tenant in mind, I believe. And I think it's just a continuation of office space, but we can have more of those details for you. At the next
Yeah, I'd like to know what the intensity of the use is and how.
it in this proposal, it's not proposing to change use. So it was previously office space, and it's being proposed as office space.
Do we know if any trees are going to be lost?
Mhm.
They're what? How many are there?
That was on. It was. I saw that. Oops, where'd it go?
I think there might have been some in the back. I think if you look in the parking lot area, they show some trees that might end up being taken down. If you zoom in, Laura,
Yeah, I
Maybe.
thought I saw the tree notes too.
maybe is that a different plan? I can't.
That's what I was wondering. Maybe I didn't put the plan in.
269, page 260.
Mhm.
So it's above view of the land. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
There's three for 80 so far. I didn't drive by to see the sizes, how little they are.
There's a lot of lawn out there, so one of my suggestions would be if you're removing trees, there should certainly be trees planted.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
It looks like there's two in the back to expand the
Parking lot.
parking lot and then the one on the side.
He does have this note: save tree if possible over here.
Which one?
That's gonna be right here. Oops, that's too much. Sorry. And up here, so on.
He does have like a couple, he has tree to
That's this one.
on the left-hand side.
Yeah, this one. Okay, so Clark and I are still working on the final agendas for the planning board, but we'll ask him to take a look at the tree removal and a proposed tree replanting.
Okay.
That they're native.
Yeah, and of course the usual CAC blurb on pesticide free, etc. Well, what was a couple of other things like the charging thing in the parking?
Oh, yep,
and-
that's a good idea.
Mhm.
yeah,
EV charging stations.
Have lights, the other lights.
dark sky
Any
compatible.
new lighting? Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
Solar slapped on there.
Solar,
Condition.
Okay. So I've got our usuals are okay. So notes for planning board are take a look at tree removal, tree replanting, introduce the pesticide-free pledge, ask them if they're going to do EV charging stations, ask if there's any new lighting and that it be dark sky friendly,
Mhm.
and then ask if if it's possible to put solar on the roof of the new addition or solar everywhere.
We want to know if there's going to be an intensity change.
Oh
in
yes, the
traffic.
type of office, yeah.
Yeah.
Type of office and any change in intensity of use.
So in the front of the, on their diagram, it says something all EX trees and bushes to be removed, but it doesn't. And then it's to the right of save tree if possible comment. So in the front there, I don't know what those lines are for.
Oh, I see. All existing trees and bushes to be removed.
So I don't know what that.
Yeah. We'll just get clarification from them on which trees are going and what they're proposing to
Mhm.
replant. That's probably the best way to handle that.
And native, native trees and bushes to be
Yeah,
planted, please.
native.
And
Is it within our purview to like recommend that no lawn be there, no grass be there? Is that something we can?
so,
Do
it would be
Yeah.
really nice if they started to, or we started, I mean, we've kind of expanded to that, but I mean, even just, minimizing, grass to perhaps, a wildflower garden or something, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a nice article in the Times about a Cornell University study showing native grasses that are native to New York to replace the conventional lawn, and it only requires mowing 2 times a year, and it's self-seeding.
My sense is,
No.
I mean, we could make that recommendation, but we are an advisory board.
Mhm.
And I think given where we are, that might be a stretch for that corridor. So I'm not quite sure that would carry the day.
Understood.
Although
But
feel like
I
when
think we can look at the property and maybe get it so it's not as, we can improve the look of the property.
yeah, and just say there's a ton of lawn out there.
Yeah.
Like, can you reduce
I mean,
some of the lawn and add?
Yeah.
Can you reduce some of the lawn and add native
Yeah.
plantings because that would be.
Yeah, no, that's
Save
what
their
I'm saying.
pocketbook.
I think we have leeway there, but I think
Okay.
if we said forever wildflowers for the entire parcel, that could be a stretch.
It would make
Right.
Laura really happy though.
Yeah, it would make a lot of people happy, but I think that would be a stretch for that area.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Any other
In my
comments?
opinion, that's all. That's just,
Yeah.
okay, so we're gonna see this project again.
We'll give those comments and get some clarifications on some of the site.
Okay, so that now brings us to the Climate Smart Community Task Force part of the meeting. So, item number 1. Laura, did you have something that you wanted to present for that?
Nope, I'm still working on that.
You're still working on that, okay. Ashok, you had a document that you sent out on the Bethlehem Conservation Advisory Program with, how it applied to Niskayuna. So if
Definitely.
you'd like to
So
talk to that, we can talk to that now.
yes. So last time we met, so I had given myself a grade of D because I was not prepared in October to address this issue. Happy to report that in November, I am indeed prepared. I got a lot of help from Chelsea and from John Baranowski, who is not here right now. So they reached out to Bethlehem and got a ton of information, and Chelsea reached out to Clifton Park and got a ton of information too. So very briefly, Bethlehem has two separate mechanisms: a conservation easement mechanism where if a landowner foregoes development, then they get a tax break. Tax break only applies to land, not structures on the land. Now, I was actually more impressed by their second mechanism, which is a farms and forests, farmland and forest fund, which is funded by budget surplus and through private donations, although the town is not allowed to solicit any donations. So they have a nice pot of money, and if a property comes up for sale, then the town is often given the right of first refusal, and the town actually has some funds to act on such first refusals. So, and this pot of money can be augmented by state grants, federal grants, and so on. So I made, again, I shouldn't say with a lot of help from Chelsea and John Baranowski, I was able to put together information and say options for open space, forest, and farmland preservation in Niskayuna. And, when I was talking to Chelsea and to John, like one of the things that kept coming up is both the town of Bethlehem and the town of Clifton Park has a dedicated open space coordinator position. In Clifton Park, it's a permanent position. In Bethlehem, it's a part-time position. And Niskayuna is, first of all, we have a higher population density than either one of those. We have smaller land area than either one of those, Bethlehem and Clifton Park, that is. And we are kind of late to the game in terms of conservation. So I put together that document with 3 recommendations. Number 1, we start working towards a conservation easement exemption program. We start working towards a farmland and forest fund. And we recommend to the town board that a open space coordinator position be created. And again, it need not be full-time, it can be part-time. And, saying it delicately, right, Clark and Laura's workload, substantial. So it's there for you to review, right? And you all have edit access to the Google Doc, so you can provide comments and such. I'm hoping we can pass along a recommendation to the town board. Now that the election is over, people are more, receptive to new projects, etc.
I actually thought it was a really nice piece of work.
Thank you, Chairman.
And it's interesting because as part of the comp plan, I looked at this idea of setting up funds and financing. And there's a really interesting statistic that in New York State, there's a lot of different ways to do it. But when these referendums are put up in front of the residents, a high percentage of them really pass. I mean, we're talking 80% or higher of the various things. And one of the things that really comes out when you look at these communities are, if you go and do the homework about the cost of development and the savings you actually have with open space, it becomes a much easier argument. So I've talked to Laura about that, and I think there's really something there that we could build support for that. So I encourage everybody to take a look at that. I would also encourage you, Ashok, to bring it to the comprehensive plan committee, because
Okay.
I think we're looking at that and we're sort of preparing something there as well.
Okay.
So nice.
So for next steps, shall we say, for November, we all take a look at the document, and December we'll plan on finalizing some language to put before the town board. Would that be okay? Because I don't want this to be yet another initiative that, dies in committee.
I think we could do that. I want to look at that though, because if the comprehensive plan is going to basically recommend a whole bunch of different options.
Hmm.
Might be better to do it all in one shot than piecemeal, but I think we should have this discussion in November,
December.
December. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I should also say that we found John Baranowski, he found a resource that talks about the tax base. And this is the question you get, right? Like, they're going to lose tax base, etc. And the according to the study, which talked about New England towns, and we are not that different from a New England town, the impact on property taxes is extremely minimal. And in fact, in a town like Niskayuna, if you keep building houses and convert everything to residential or commercial, at some point the town loses its character, and then the property prices start like really going
Yeah.
down.
We should talk about that. I worked some numbers for the town of Niskayuna, and it is not you're not in the plus column.
Hmm.
So they're very preliminary. I wouldn't want to share them at this meeting, but we should work on it. But I agree with you. There's a body of reports and evidence out there that is certainly supporting what you're saying, and actually probably saying it's more dire than that. So, yeah, I think this is really important. I think, we need to really look at this issue. So.
Okay, so I'm going to send the link one more time to everyone, and please provide feedback. And then, Chairman Strayed, like, I am okay with bundling it and baking it into the comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan is also a little bit longer term process, right? We're looking at like several months before it goes into the town board. So part of me says, let's bake it into the comprehensive plan. And part of me says, no, let it be separate. It's too urgent right now. We just had a great deal of discussion regarding the golf course and all. And it's not a bad idea I don't know. I'm on two minds on that one.
Yeah, we can certainly discuss it. I'm
Yeah,
fine with that.
yeah.
Okay. Natural resource inventory. I think you're up again.
All right. So this one, please, I think it's a state grant and my name is on the grant. So, the RFP is there, like, can you all look at the RFP? And, I've already gotten a solicitation from a person saying like, hey, we want to bid for your RFP. When are you going to talk about it? When will it be on the website? So, this one, I would like to move a little quicker.
Yeah, I reviewed it. I think in general it looks really good. The one thing that I struggle with when I put an RFP out is whether or not to give the price of people. Because if you put out 16,500, you'll get 16,500. So sometimes I struggle, but then on the other hand, they need to know the budget and it's a grant. So I'd probably leave the number in. The only other comment I had, which I really do feel like is mostly ready to go out, is that it needs like every RFP that I've done has a formal person to submit it to, which shouldn't be just from the email. It should be written into the RFP, like where it says interested parties are requested to submit a proposal by December 15th, 2023 to, and then, to be safe, you could say lrobertson@niskayuna.org and, A. Ramasubramanian so that we're both getting it.
Okay.
Yeah. And say like, usually we'd have to say, electronic submissions only, because we're really not interested in people mailing anything to us.
Okay.
Do we, and I need to apologize. I need to go through it a little bit more, but do we have a rubric? Do we require certain things in this proposal, like sample their work or experience?
You had a little of that in there. Consultants who have experience and a passion for involving the community in their surveying work are preferred. Yeah. So yeah, we could if
add
we wanted
something
to, we
in there.
could flesh it out a little more and say, interested parties are requested to submit a proposal by December 2. A proposal shall include a budget, a resume and samples of past work in the field or something.
Yeah, I think you need to have at least some common material that gets submitted so you can make a choice, right? It becomes really hard when you don't have that in a proposal.
But I think
Okay.
the top paragraphs are perfect, so we just need to add just that very minute detail at the end so that we have a consistent response and can evaluate things accordingly, and they know who to send it to.
Okay, so if those are easy to make, if I make them, say tomorrow,
Yeah.
can
I have one more question.
yes, Chairman.
Sorry.
It's okay.
The selection of the properties, could you talk a little bit about how that was done?
The selection of the this is like phase 2, so so we Laura and I sat together and like we basically selected properties that are they're all town owned properties, so there's no like permissions and like landowner permissions and things like that. So
Yeah, I guess that's where my question comes at. How do we do this? And maybe this is not for this particular proposal, but how do we do this for private land that's of value, right? Because generally that's what's at risk and that's what we need to build the case for.
mhm.
So I can answer that.
Okay.
The reason this is only town-owned land is if the grant was to go on to private property, when we submitted the grant, we needed to have the right to go on private property prior to submitting the grant, and we didn't have time to do that.
Okay.
But I think normally, if we had a little more time, what we do is we reach out to like the owners south of the Rice Sanctuary and some of the bigger property owners and get their approval ahead of time. Another thing that's kind of interesting about this is these are the lands that we submitted to DEC. If someone was to give us a proposal to do more lands, I don't think DEC would say no. And if there was a way that we were able to add some private lands, as long as the homeowners gave us permission to inventory them and we could document them, I also think that would be okay. We can't do less, but we could probably do more. Which is kind of what I was getting at with putting the 16,500. Like if you were able to put it out and somebody could give you a quote for 12,000, then we could say, can you add, a couple more parcels in? It's just, but this is what was bid. This is what was granted to us for the grant. So it's certainly good to get a handle on all these properties.
I mean, we need to do all our properties. I'm not questioning that. I noticed that they were all town properties and that was
a grant
that was the
requirement.
question that
If we were going to do a map and identify private property, we had to have a letter from the property owner ahead of time.
So how does that work if there's an important property for the town, but the landowner refuses to provide that?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, eminent domain does not apply. So if they
No,
don't want
no,
us on their land, we absolutely cannot go there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one,
It's interesting.
the deadline was approaching and it was important to have a relationship with the Mohawk River Basin people. They're very, very nice. So we went with it. So as far as natural resources inventories go, I personally, we are forced to do this approach because we don't have a massive grant. We're doing it like piecemeal after the mini NRI. But I actually like this approach because it's all like bite-sized pieces. It's more easy to get the community involved, which has always been a big passion for me. It shouldn't be just us. It should be like high school students, college students, and so on. And once we get traction, then we can start going into plan it a little ahead, get permissions from private landowners. You saw me petition GE like an hour ago, right?
Yeah. Oh, no,
So but Laura, coming back to your point, like I'm happy to remove the 16,500 if it leaves the door open to add another parcel later on, because you said we can always do more. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, it's a question.
Hmm.
The danger of not having it in there is that you'll get two bids that are higher, and then
Yeah.
you're not able to fund them.
But
If you
can-
know that your project limit is 16.5, you just put it in there. They know they can't quote more than that because you don't have the
But
money.
in that situation, wouldn't you just go back to them and reduce the scope?
Well, you have to be a little careful with bid shopping. You can always get more, but you really can't carve away.
The grant has a single budget
No,
line.
no. Yeah, no,
Mm.
I'm just trying to think of how, it's a different situation. So I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we get a metrics in there or, just some way to really judge the candidates, I'm fine with,
Okay.
moving forward with it.
So we'll keep the 16.5 in there. I'll add the small changes, and then
One other thing we'd want to check, Ashok, is the December 15th deadline.
okay.
If that will be enough to get it on the town board, it may not matter. But if we want to recommend,
January 15.
okay, no, I think so. If we do December 15th, we would then potentially pick our candidate in January, and then the town board would, because
Mhm.
16,500 has to go to the town board. So
Okay.
then at the end of January, the town board would.
I
hopefully
thought the
select-
town board already voted to accept the grant.
So they voted to accept the grant. Yeah.
Okay.
But when we enter into a contract consultant, it still has to go to the town board.
I
We
see.
can't pick a consultant in the wild.
Okay. So I'm happy with January 15th being the deadline, and then February 15th, the town board, does whatever they do.
Okay. I don't think I was actually going to suggest shortening it. to
Oh,
December
okay.
15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know that
realistically,
you want to.
if this were to go out next week
Yeah.
and you have Thanksgiving,
Hmm.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I
Mm.
would give it a little
Okay.
bit more.
Okay.
So December 15th, then we'll review at our January meeting, pick a candidate, and forward to the town board in January.
Okay. Awesome. So, Laura and Dot, please forgive me. Expect some pestering from me in the next few days to make sure this
That's
gets on
fine.
the
Yeah, no,
gets on the
I
website.
thought it was good.
Yeah.
And, yes.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a recommendation. I think, Ashok, your union email address should not be here.
Okay,
And
that's
is
fair.
that this is the business of the town. I think all correspondence should be funneled to the town. I'd hate to see you be put in a situation where you're receiving town business emails, especially around bidding and questions around RFPs coming into a non-town controlled email address. So I would recommend that or I'll defer to Laura, but they should all come to the town and be kept by the town because they're records of the town.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want that
Yeah, I would second that.
That's
I think
true.
to be.
catch.
So Laura, I'll just leave your email. Like
Yeah.
I have a private Gmail, but it's a little
No,
crazy.
just leave it
Yeah.
mine.
That would open up your Gmail to becoming a public record repository.
Okay.
You don't want that.
Okay. Thank
I'm
you.
not a
That's,
lawyer.
I mean, that's
For the record.
I'll just remove myself.
Yeah. No, let's
I'll
have
just-
No,
Laura's.
because there could be a potential conflict of interest there, even
Exactly, that
with
too.
union. I mean,
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I do have one more quick NRI question, please. Laura, the website has changed, and the mini NRI used to be there. It's no longer there.
I know.
I have an email from the CAC of Glenville saying that they want a copy of the mini NRI. I said it's on the website. Go look at it. It's no longer on the website. So what I have is a PDF. So do I have everyone has seen it? You have not seen it. But can I just send it to them?
You can
You
send it
know,
to
yeah,
us.
if it was on the website,
It
it's
was-
public.
Yeah.
It's public information. It doesn't have to be foiled. The website was set up to be moved in May, and so it's only current up till May.
Okay.
And I've been catching it up but it's taking me a while. It also erased all of our pesticide free. It erased our composting pledge. I didn't realize it erased our NRI, but so I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Can
Can we bring it back?
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
can bring it back. It just
Okay.
I just have to go through it piece by piece and bring it back to where it was.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes me a little. It takes me a little.
Well,
while.
if there's a webmaster or somebody, I can follow up with that person directly.
Well, so if the website isn't functioning, you can email the webmaster, but they basically delegated the content of the website to each department head. So and it's just interesting. I think the website gives us a lot more flexibility in the long run. I think it'll allow us to add more things and engage better with the public. But it is a catch up process between May and now November. And he said when it goes, we're going to have to do some catch up. But, just little things like I was just telling Chuck, the people who migrated the website, when they migrated, they're not planners, they're website people. So they migrated things kind of funny. And I have to go back in and check every individual link. So I got the CAC. The CAC is actually the only one that I went through every single packet and completed it and corrected all the dates and stuff. So you guys' agendas are correct. Every other one of my boards, I still have to fix the previous years. But then I'll start adding in the NRI stuff and the composting stuff again.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on, pesticide outreach.
Nothing new.
Okay.
I would say just status quo.
Mhm.
I think over the plan is, well, actually for me is over the winter to any email addresses that we have for pesticide outreach and for the composting I think I'm going to try to correspond and see if there's any some information to those people that have previously given their emails and requests for further information. And I was sort of waiting for the other, for the email, for our new website to be updated, to create the QR code, to be able to send that out to everybody so that they could have access to that. But I'll just skip to can I just skip to the composting
Yes, you may.
initiative? Well, actually, so for the composting initiative, so we have a site for a community composting site. So we're just working on a date to do a soft opening and to start that pilot program. So it'll be over by the community gardens by the senior center.
Okay, and it's completely full, right?
No, it's not completely.
The people can still enroll?
Yeah, so we haven't even started the enrollment process. I
Oh,
have
okay.
I have a couple of names of people that would like to join, but the actual invitation to enroll and all that stuff hasn't been rolled out.
And we have openings for 30?
So that is the next piece of that has to be determined.
Okay,
So we have a tentative we have another meeting scheduled for late November, early December.
Mhm.
This is all planning to be done, and set up for early spring to start.
okay, great.
I
So,
think, I know Ashok has brought this up a couple times, but it's hard for us to get information to people who live in apartments, but apartment dwellers are probably, have a big need for composting offsite because their apartment complexes don't offer it in a lot of places. Although we are trying to get it at River's Ledge, but maybe if we make a flyer, we could go to the different apartment complexes and see if there's like a public board that we could stick it on.
Okay, that sounds good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that is the kind of like the sort of like my phase for like once I
Right.
get that number and then we figure out a process. I'm sort of waiting for the powers to be to set everything in motion, and then when we confirm the size of the actual compost and the number of people, that's when I feel comfortable that I can start the next phase of the project.
Mhm.
That's kind of the fun phase.
So, yeah, so that's exciting.
No, that's great, excellent.
Oh, did you want to go back to the Lowell biodiversity initiatives and just talk about the wildflowers real fast?
So yeah, I'm ready to plant wildflowers. If they
Okay.
can- But I
So
don't-
Ellen has been communicating with Nick with Schenectady County Soil and Water to try and get more wildflowers.
Mhm.
I am going to purchase the seed that she picked out as much as I can within my budget this year. Nick wasn't he goes out there fairly regularly, but apparently last fall it was a little wet and his equipment got pretty stuck.
Mhm.
And it's more wet right now. So he doesn't want to take his equipment out yet, but he's thinking if there's a hard frost and it's not super late in the season, like even if it's just like early December, it might still be a good time. He wants the ground to get hard. Then he can try and get his crew out to put the compost and we could do the seed. Another thing he said is, buy the seed this year and then, if we're not able to get a hard frost where he can get machines in, he might even be able to do it in the spring before the ground has thawed and we can do the compost. And then I said, is it okay? Will the seeds keep? And he said, yeah, it's totally fine. So buy the seeds in case we can put them down this year. And then if not, we'll put them down in the spring.
Great, and then we'll get the. All right, perfect.
Yeah, Ellen, I'm going to buy the one that you picked out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we'll just and once we have it, we'll just
Hold it.
we'll hold it, but we'll write down the one we got, and then once we see where he puts the thing, we'll update the map,
Yeah, we should do that.
and then we'll move from there so that each year we have the plan. Perfect. Thank you.
We're doing our own little scientific experiment on what wildflowers grow the best in Planet Park.
Great.
Okay, Quietness-Cuyuna. Do we have any update on that?
I don't have an update.
Nikki's not here.
I don't have an update on that,
Yeah,
and
okay.
Nikki's not here, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's fine.
Nikki's not here.
Okay, wildlife corridors.
Oh, Georgia did join us.
He might just be listening though. I know she sent a couple more bits of information to me, and she's continuing to work on the presentation she gave to you guys the last time.
Okay.
Right. I'll continue to work with Ashraf and Laura, adding average migration distances and looking at those two corridors and how we can connect them with the current projects.
Excellent.
Thanks, Georgia.
Sure thing. And thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of the docket. Would anybody like to talk about anything else? Or bring anything else?
Good.
I had a quick question. Do we have openings for new members?
Yeah, I believe we still have at least one spot. If you know someone, have them send me their resume.
Okay, thanks.
We might have two. I'll have to check. We have at least one spot though.
Any other comments?
Good.
Okay, hearing no other comments, I would make a motion that we adjourn for this evening.
I can second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Hi.
Does anybody want to stay here longer? Hearing
Aye.
none.
Thank you, Chairman, for your excellent chairmanship. And thank you, Laura.
Everybody have a good week.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks and good night, everyone.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Are we off the air or?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
The November 14th meeting, like, is it just privilege of
I did the end stream.
You did the entry. Did you?
I never turned it on.